couple of weeks ago, I watched a forgotten made-for-TV Mr. T movie on Tubi. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since. That's weird, I know, because by all accounts, it's not a movie anybody should really remember. So why can't I stop thinking about it? After YouTube, the app that I used to watch media for entertainment on most often is Tubi. Some people use Tubi to watch movies. I use Tubi like a raccoon digging through the trash behind a blockbuster. To get it out of the way, this video isn't sponsored, but hey, Tubi, holler at your girl. I use the app a lot, and I'm always on the hunt for older things that I haven't seen or preferably have never heard of. One night, I was scrolling through my recommended tab on Tubi, and I came across this image. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, this right here is like a siren call. I know full well that this could be a trap. I know that I'm about to wind up shipwrecked on the jagged rocks of forgotten TV cinema, and yet I click every time. Originally airing on CBS on November 7th, 1984, The Toughest Man in the World stars Mr. T as Bruce Brubaker. The film begins by introducing us to Billy Green, a young street tough who likes to do hood rat things with his friends. In walks Bruce, imposing in his matching sweats and windbreaker jacket to set Billy straight. Bruce is a jacked Vietnam-era former Marine now working as the bouncer of a nightclub in Chicago. He spends his time running a youth center at one of the local schools. The man cares about two things: making gains at the gym and making sure that the youth of his neighborhood have a safe place to go that keeps them off the streets. Pretty early on, he has his first encounter with the closest thing we get to a bad guy in the movie, Tanker Weems. Tanker is the reigning toughest man in the world, and he's in town to defend his title in this year's competition. Tanker is also apparently a violent drinker with a short fuse. Instead of demonstrating his physical superiority, Bruce elects to try and defuse and de-escalate the situation. Tanker doesn't go for it, but Bruce does his best. While training the kids for an upcoming championship basketball game, Bruce learns from Principal Leslie Easton that there is no funding for his youth program. Not only has the program been canceled, but we learn that Bruce has been running the program without permission entirely on his own as a volunteer for no pay. He just believes it's that important. This is where Bruce must go toe-to-toe with one of the real villains of the film, faceless bureaucracy. As you might expect, this is not Bruce's wheelhouse. Eventually, he loses his cool, landing himself a stay in jail. As a result, the kids miss out on playing in the championship game because he wasn't there. When Billy comes by later to check in, Bruce hits him with this.
I'm always preaching to you guys about the importance of learning from your mistakes. I've been sitting here over an hour trying to figure out how I'm going to learn from this one.
If it were set to music, I think we would call that a bar. Now, they need a strategy on how to save the youth center. Bruce doesn't know how to make a budget. Billy happens to be very good at math. Down at the nightclub, after a 4-on-1 battle in which Mr. T shows Mr. Domestic Violence and his pals that they are, in fact, fools to be pitied, Billy determines it's going to take $25,000 to keep the youth center running for a year. While working on a plan for how to come up with the money, everyone remarks on how Billy hasn't been around for a few days. Bruce takes the time to go check on Billy at home. We learn that Billy's mom is not in running for Mother of the Year. They never outright say what she does for work, but I think it's pretty heavily implied Dennis Farina's character in this clip stayed the night for business purposes. Bruce finds Billy where he's been sleeping out in the hallway, and he invites Billy to come stay with him instead. After a quick encounter with the thugs working for the bookie Billy used to work for, remember I said he was good at math, it's time to get down to business. So how do we raise $25,000? Well, what about a fundraiser? Great idea! Now you're going to need to register as a charity and get a license to hold that fundraiser. Bruce admits he's going to need some help because he's been on his own since he was 10 years old and he's functionally illiterate. Principal Easton is happy to help. She gets the paperwork handled and Bruce and the kids set out to sell some raffle tickets. They even get Tanker to reluctantly agree to show up for 30 minutes as his penance for the whole drunk at the club incident. Unfortunately, the cops show up and tell Bruce he's going to have to shut the whole thing down and they'll have to return the money they collected for the raffle. Turns out, Billy ran a scam to get folks to buy more tickets, so not only can they not keep the money, now they're being referred to as a gang instead of a youth center. Pretty understandably, Bruce loses his cool and tells Billy to scram.
Now get out of here! Get out of my center! Get out of my apartment! And get out of my life!
But wait, remember that Toughest Man in the World competition the Tanker was in town for? Well, the grand prize is $100,000 and signups are still open. So, new game plan. Bruce needs to buckle down, get to training, and get ready to face Tanker in the ring. To earn the right to do that, he's going to first have to beat 199 other competitors in various feats of strength. Checking back in with Billy, he's gone to the bookie to get his old job back. The bookie and his crew, along with Tanker and his manager, come up with some plot to rig the fight and garner sympathy or something. It turns out the details of the plot won't matter, but the plan results in Tanker pretending to be injured. In the final leg of the competition, there's this non-stop multiple sport event that they have to do. There's a 10K run immediately followed by a series of events in the arena. Things like push-ups, chin-ups, arm wrestling, and an obstacle course. Despite his struggles and some shady plays by other contestants, Bruce comes out on top. It's going to be him versus Tanker Weems in the ring. The bookies can't risk Bruce winning this match, so they come up with a plan to use Billy to lure him to a warehouse where they're going to inject him with a scary-looking mystery substance to keep him from showing up to the match, thus forfeiting. Turns out they don't just want to knock him out, they want to do some permanent damage. Billy, unable to handle the weight of the ramifications of his actions, manages to tip off the owner of the nightclub. Because this is an 80s movie, rescue arrives in exactly the way you'd hope. The nightclub owner drives a bus full of children through the wall of a restaurant supply warehouse to save the day. The warehouse is also full of food, including wedding cakes for some reason, so of course a food fight ensues. This man takes a tub of mustard to the face, which I imagine had to be awful. Tanker and his manager are also there, and Bruce smashes Tanker in the face with a wedding cake after besting him in single combat. He and Billy, along with Principal Easton, walk off into the sunset, smiling and talking about going to collect the prize money. The end. Roll credits. Now, I do have some questions about the rules of this competition. For starters, the final obstacle course is this wall that you have to scale with a rope. We know from an earlier training segment Bruce isn't very good at these, so instead of scaling the wall, he busts through the wall to cross the finish line first. I can't imagine that that's approved in the rules, but everybody seems to think it's just fine, and he's crowned the winner of that part of the competition, so great. Also, he does defeat Tanker in the final fight, but that's not a sanctioned match, that's a brawl in a warehouse. So I'm not sure that's actually enough to win the prize money and save the youth center, but they seem to be under the impression that they can just go claim the money now. Will whoever commissions this competition actually approve that payout? We never find out. So, that's The Toughest Man in the World. Honestly, if that was all it had been, I probably would have watched, laughed at the questionable fashion and the corny fight scenes, and then never thought about it again. That's not what happened. What surprised me about The Toughest Man in the World was that beneath the sweat and the ridiculous competition, the movie had a surprisingly thoughtful answer to a question I didn't realize it was going to ask. What actually makes someone tough? Let's start with the obvious answer to the question with Tanker Weems, played by actor and stuntman Tom Milanovich, who unfortunately passed away in 2003. The guy was 6'3", and in 1984 he basically had muscles on top of his muscles. Tanker is a 3-time champion of the Toughest Man in the World competition. He's unreasonably jacked. Tanker is what the movie presents as the initial obvious answer to the question of toughness. He's big, he's strong, he wins, he intimidates people. By every superficial requirement, he's exactly what the title promises. But the movie quietly asks us to take a closer look, because none of those things actually require character. Tanker is physically powerful, but he's morally weak. Bruce, the iconic Mr. T, is likewise unreasonably jacked. But unlike Tanker, Bruce isn't afraid to consistently choose the harder path. When faced with violence from Tanker, he tries to de-escalate first. He volunteers with the kids for free despite not having much himself, knowing that it's what they need. In the face of his own discomfort and challenges with illiteracy, he learns how to navigate the bureaucratic machine to try to get these kids the help they need. When he gets arrested and causes the kids to miss out on playing in the championship game, he reminds us that when we make mistakes in life, we can't forget to stop and ask ourselves what we can learn from them. He takes the time to sit and reflect on it, and he uses that as his guide on how to move forward. Bruce is tough because he chooses to learn from failure. Billy spends the movie learning how to be a tough man from Bruce. Billy's got a rough life. Not crazy comic book rough, but rough in a way that's very real for some kids. His family doesn't have much money, his mom is professionally social, and he doesn't have a father figure around. I don't see Dennis Farina stepping up to help raise this kid. One thing I think the film handles really well is how Bruce responds to learning these things about Billy. He offers to meet the immediate need that Billy has for shelter, acknowledges that things are rough at home, and then he pivots on how they move forward instead of dwelling on the emotional aspect of the situation. He doesn't try to unpack all of Billy's trauma and help him process his feelings, because that's not what Bruce knows. He teaches Billy a very valid way of coping simply by acknowledging without unpacking. When you're just trying to survive, stopping to dwell and process isn't a luxury that you usually get. There is a time and a place for it, but normally it comes much later. Bruce doesn't have the tools to help Billy unpack everything that he's dealing with emotionally, and the movie doesn't pretend like he does. What Bruce has is the ability to identify the immediate need in front of him and take the steps to meet it. Billy needs a safe place to sleep. He needs an adult who sees him as more than a problem. He just needs somebody to show up. So why does Billy, a kid who has every reason in the world not to trust adults, decide to trust Bruce? For starters, Bruce is honest. He never pretends to be something he's not. He asks for help when he needs it. When he messes up, he says he messes up and demonstrates how to move forward. Kids who have chaotic lives become really good at spotting fake adults. Bruce never asks Billy to believe in something that he hasn't earned. Bruce also shows Billy respect. Even though Billy's a kid, Bruce never talks down to him. He asks Billy to help with the budget for the youth center because he knows Billy is good at math. He doesn't see him as just a troubled kid. He's a kid with a useful skill, and that's what Bruce chooses to focus on. He treats Billy with dignity. When Bruce finds Billy sleeping in the hallway, there's no impassioned speech. He doesn't cry. He doesn't tell Billy how tragic his life is. He basically just says, okay, come stay with me. Bruce also doesn't make excuses for Billy. Bruce had some harsh words for him when the raffle got shut down, and Billy needed to understand the seriousness of what he did and what his actions caused. Bruce gets rightfully angry. He lashes out and he pushes Billy away. And when he realizes that that was a mistake, he sits with that. He reflects. He does what he needs to in order to repair the relationship. When Billy calls him to come to that warehouse, he doesn't hesitate. Also, I think we need an honorable mention here for Principal Leslie Easton. She built her relationship with Bruce much in the same way we see him build his relationship with Billy. She never tries to fix Bruce, and she never tries to save him. She partners with him in order to help him accomplish his goals. When he tells her that he's illiterate, her response is not, oh no, poor Bruce. She basically says, cool, I can help fill out paperwork. She sees his limitations, but she focuses on his strengths. She never treats him as less than. She treats him with respect, and because she respects him, he trusts her. I think their relationship's actually incredibly sweet because it's built on mutual admiration instead of rescue. And honestly, that's part of why the relationship works so well in this movie. It never frames Leslie as the woman who comes in and civilizes Bruce. She sees a man who's already worthy of respect, and she likes him for who he is, not for who she thinks she can turn him into. The reason Bruce trusts Leslie and Billy trusts Bruce is the same. Neither person approaches them with pity. As Mr. T has taught us over the years, pity is a four-letter word. One thing the film tries to show us, I think, is that the toughest man in the world doesn't work alone. Nobody saves the youth center single-handedly. Bruce is the leadership and the muscle. Billy is the brains. Principal Easton can navigate the bureaucracy. The nightclub owner and his mom contribute resources. The kids from the center contribute effort. Everybody shows up. They become the village that it takes to raise the children. Let's talk about Mr. T himself for a minute. I didn't watch this movie alone. My husband watched it with me. And we were talking about Mr. T's acting skills.
Leave the man alone.
And my husband made a point that really resonated with me. He said Mr. T is not an actor. He's a star. You don't cast Mr. T because you want him to disappear into a role. You cast him because the audience already has a relationship with what Mr. T represents. The audience already knows the muscles and the jewelry and the mohawk. So when he plays Bruce, the movie doesn't have to spend time convincing us that he's intimidating. Part of what makes the movie compelling is watching the intimidating guy choose kindness. I also think that's the real reason this movie works so well. That basketball scene where they're practicing for the big game, that doesn't feel like acting. That scene feels like they told the kids to start playing, Mr. T started coaching and cheering them on, and they rolled tape. He's smiling in a way that looks genuine, not performed. He's just Mr. T. We believe Bruce because we believe Mr. T. I think he always looks his most natural with children. This still from his TV show TNT proves my point. Yes, his mohawk is slicked back. Yes, that show is also available on Tubi, and you owe it to yourself to check it out if you haven't seen it. So why can't I stop thinking about this movie? Well, I think it's because it reminded me that the toughest people I've known were never necessarily the strongest. They were the people who kept showing up. They admitted when they were wrong. They learned from failure. They treated people with dignity instead of pity. They did what they could, even when they knew they couldn't fix everything. That's what Bruce Brubaker does. I aspire to be like Bruce when I grow up. And because this is what happens when I fall down a rabbit hole, watching this film did also send my brain on some really fun and unnecessary side quests. One of my favorite things about digging through older movies is suddenly realizing that I recognize an actor and I have no idea why. So Billy was played by a young man named John P. Navin Jr. If you're a person of a certain age, there's a decent chance that you've seen him before and maybe just don't realize it. He played Cousin Eddie's kid Dale in National Lampoon's Vacation, and he delivered the first line of the first episode of the show Cheers.
Out of bed, Chief.
Also, I said it confidently earlier, but Dennis Farina may be the second most famous person in this movie, and I could not find him credited for it anywhere. I didn't see his name in the movie credits. It's not on his IMDb. It's not on the IMDb for the movie. I do know that he made a number of other made-for-TV movies that year. This film was shot in Chicago, where I think he was still based at the time. And he was in an episode of Miami Vice the same year where he looks exactly the same. So technically, I'm actually only like 95% sure that this is Dennis Farina, but if somebody wants to fact check me and update IMDb, go for it. I watched his first episode of Miami Vice last night, and that was what sent me down the path of making this video to begin with. Which reminds me, can we all admit now that Miami Vice was primarily only popular because cocaine was also popular in the 80s? Anyway, that's all I've got on The World's Toughest Man. Go over to Tubi, check this out for free with ads. Tubi, call me. Please like, comment, subscribe, do all the things down below. And as always,
Jesus and I love you, Joe.
Jesus and I love you too, Lise.
Jesus and I love you. Later, y'all.
Because the toughest man in the world is the one who knows the right way to go.